Hello friends, welcome back for another part of our walkthrough of Oxygen Not Included's base game. While we're at it, maybe we should grab another duplicant, because our food is about to stabilize. For the remainder of the duplicants that we take from this point, I thought we already had somebody with this preset. For any of the duplicants we take from this point, I think it's probably best if you don't specialize them. So you're probably going to have a handful of them that are specialized, and it's good to have a bunch of other ones that are just generically useful in a bunch of other roles, so that when you assign in, what's this word called? Priority to some of your tasks, it assigns it much more cleanly and much more straightforward, because you don't have to have them messing up that priority by doing something that they specialize in instead. So I'm up to 8 duplicants now. I did take a 7th one earlier, which is serving as just my cook. The 8th one, like I mentioned, is just going to be a generalist, so for general stuff that I'm going to want them to do, digging and building is going to be one of the most important things we're going to do throughout the game, so those are going to be the skills that I start them on. Let's pick up where we left off last time. We were pumping out some polluted water so we could switch on to a new oxygen source, so we'll start doing that now. Once these tanks get full, you can start doing it earlier, you don't need to wait for all of them. Just put a deconstruction order on this, and anywhere else in your base, you need to not have a bottle emptier that is taking polluted water. Otherwise, they're just going to pour it right back out, and all of this is going to be for nothing. So all we need to do here is, once these bottles are on the floor here, you can see that they're emitting polluted oxygen at a pretty high rate. This one bottle alone will almost be enough oxygen for 2 duplicants by itself. So once we get all of them running, we can have our whole colony just running off of polluted oxygen, and all my duplicants will have to do is run sand here every once in a while. We're going to stay on this for a long time, and the reason we're doing this is because it doesn't require electricity, at least not much. The deodorizers do take up a little bit. We have a lot of sand, and there will always be more sand. And we won't be burning off resources that are going to be more rare. We also don't produce any heat with this setup too. So a lot of upsides for doing it this way, and this can last for a long time because there is a tremendous amount of polluted water on this map, as you can see. So, we're just going to be relying on polluted water now. I don't need to track my oxygen anymore because we are off that. I'm now tracking sand. I think I did that in the last video. I don't remember if I did or not. So, yeah. Now what happens when we run out of water here? So, one of 2 things you can do. You can continue to refill this pool, which is what I would recommend. So if there's any other pools around here, you could basically make it kind of flow down into that area. We could easily start with something like this and get that out of the way and start refilling this pool. This will also enable us to dig up into here without worrying about polluted water spilling everywhere, so that's something we can definitely do. I can also connect it over to this one so we have some extra water. With this one, I could dig downward if I wanted it to flow into other areas, but I'm just going to continue to pool this water into the places I already have infrastructure set up, so I don't need to redo it. The other thing you could do is you could pump it out of another place that you might want access to, and I will want access to this area, because this whole area right here, how am I going to do this? This whole area right here is going to be an area for my Great Hall and my nature reserve, like we talked about at the beginning of the game. And in order for them to make sure that they are getting the most out of this nature reserve, I'm going to force them to go that way in order to get to the Great Hall at all. So that's going to be the plan. So if I need to get this out of the way, I could do it here. And let's see. I'm not going to do it that way. I'll just have it flow to another area. So I'll just kind of dig a hole here, because I don't need a lot of polluted water right now, but if I did, I easily could just set up another pump there. And then you can just do something like this, where you draw some ladders up there, get a straight line over to where the pool is, and now it should just all drain down into this area. We'll put up some deodorizers and stuff to deal with the polluted oxygen that's going to come out. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that for how we're going to be maintaining our water flow from this point. You also may get a little bit overrun with polluted oxygen here, so if you need a little bit more around this area, you can go ahead and drop a handful more. Something like this. Whoops. You can put some on top if you wanted to. This should not be a ton of maintenance for your duplicants. It's also in a pretty centralized location, and once we get shipping going, it will be even easier to maintain. So, pretty simple solution. There, that will deal with all the polluted oxygen. Let's see here. Let me check my notes really quick. Oh, one more thing is we need to get into this ice biome, so we need to start doing that now. Let me see if there's anything else that I want to talk about first. Oh, these pacus. This is something that people like to ranch. I don't really like these. This might be a little bit of an unpopular opinion, but I just attack these when I see them. Mostly because these will produce polluted dirt, which will force my duplicants to go grab it every time that they produce it, because I have this bin set up that is collecting it, which is here. And they also will eat the algae. I really would rather have the algae than any polluted dirt, and our food needs are going to be taken care of with what we're about to do. There's just water draining in here, by the way, so hey, well, now we're filled back up. So I'm just going to tell them to kill these pacus because I don't want them. So that's what I do. If you want to keep them around, you definitely can, but I find them to be more of a nuisance than anything else. Likewise, because I'm killing them, I want to make sure that I'm cooking them into cooked seafood because they will be a little bit higher food quality. And this is one of those cases where it actually does increase the amount of calories you can get out of it. So definitely no reason not to cook it. We're also cooking our gristleberries, and that's also going to have the same effect. Adds about, I don't know, what is that, 25% of the calories that it was originally. So yeah, let's get into this ice biome here really quickly. Oh, sorry. While I'm still on the topic of food, one thing we also need to do is we need to ban a bunch of the type of foods that I don't want them eating. So I don't want them to be eating my raw meat, the raw meal lice, the raw bristleberries, or the raw pacus fillets. I want it to all be cooked, and I don't want to let them eat anything that is not cooked. So make sure you go in there and do that at some point. Alright, now let's get to this ice biome. The way that I'll typically get in there at first, this will change over time, is just something simple like that. If you need to create any extra tiles with your insulated tiles, you definitely can. And there's actually another ice biome over here on this side that we're going to get into also, but there's a big pool of water in the way. So I'm just going to dig a hole and have this water flow in there like we've been doing before. Man, there's a lot of polluted oxygen coming off of this. My pressure in my base must have been kind of low earlier. So yeah. The whole point of these ice biomes, once we start getting in there, and I'll prioritize this a little bit more heavily so we can get in there a little bit further, is we want to get access to this sleet wheat. I prefer to just leave them naturally growing where they occur and kind of mine around them. The reason that I want this sleet wheat is because there's a type of food production building that we haven't talked about yet that is a microbe musher, and it's right here. I'm going to put this here because my eating area will generally be over here in just a little bit. The microbe musher is going to allow us to produce berry sludge, and berry sludge is probably the strongest food type in the game, especially in Spaced Out if you are playing Spaced Out, because it basically never decays. It will never go bad, so you can produce it in extreme excess and you won't have to worry about producing too much. With the exception of you might use too much water doing so. But once you get the sleet wheat going, you can really pare down on how many blossoms you need to grow, which will really limit your water consumption as well. If you can ever take advantage of any naturally growing things like this, it's pretty useful. But this one in particular is like the only one that I would really recommend focusing on. There's a bunch of other plant types that are decent to grow wildly, but you don't necessarily need them, especially for like the base game scenario and that kind of stuff. So all I'm going to do when I dig down here is if I go into this harvest overlay, I can see where all of these are. Sometimes they are buried behind materials, and I want to make sure that when I dig through here that I'm not getting rid of any of these accidentally. Because I could do this and dig it up, but I don't want to. So I just want to provide access to them and let my duplicants move around in here so that they can harvest them. I also probably want to leave these wheezeworts alone. We may use them later, I doubt it, but these will help keep the biome cold in a position where, like, I need to keep these sleet wheat cold as well because their lowest acceptable temperature is 5 Celsius. So if this starts to melt, it's going to ruin basically all my food that I'm expecting to get. So I'm just going to build some simple stuff like this so that they can get access to everything. And then they can get down here to the bottom. And then I'll make sure to mark everything for harvest. What's this? Looks like another sleet wheat. If there's anything that I need to dig up, let me check in the other ice biome and see if there is. What you'll want to do, I don't see any yet. We'll have to cover it later, but basically, when you dig something up, if you were to put a dig command, it'll give 2 commands if there's sleet wheat behind it. It'll give an uproot command on the sleet wheat, and it'll dig up the material. So if you do that, you can just click on the sleet wheat by continuing to click in the same space, and just cancel the uproot request on the sleet wheat, and then they'll just unearth it so that you can use it. So yeah, we'll start getting into the ice biome, and we'll hopefully get our berry sludge started. Anything else in here, do not bother with it, especially the mush bar and lice loaf. That wastes a ton of water, and it's really not good. This is the only thing I would recommend making from here is the berry sludge. So once we get access to that, our berry sludge will start. This will also mean that we'll want to stop cooking our berries when we get there, so I might wait a little bit until I'm sure that we actually have some to work with. This one's ready to harvest, so maybe we'll get some pretty soon. We'll do it a little bit later. So yeah, that's going to be the idea for food for pretty much the rest of the game. I mean, there's not going to be a reason to transition off of this unless you really want that extra morale, but once you get up to 20, 25 morale, there's not a ton more your duplicants are going to need beyond that. So, I don't know. I don't really worry about it that much. The other thing is I'm going to eventually need to deal with this carbon dioxide like we've been talking about. So we've got a bunch of carbon dioxide building up down here, and I've just been continuously digging down to kind of pull it up. That's only going to work for so long. I'm eventually going to need to actually deal with it. So the way I'm going to deal with it is just going to vent it out into space. But first I need to reach space to be able to vent it out there. So if I'm digging upward like this, I want to avoid digging into any pools of water like this. I don't want to dig into this natural gas geyser quite yet. That's going to be too hot. It'll create too much of a problem. So you can kind of just dig around the stuff that's there. If I need to go up here and kind of go over to the side, I can do that. We'll avoid these pools of salt water, go up like that. Eventually we'll reach it, and all we'll need it for right now is just to run a line of ventilation to space, so we can get rid of the carbon dioxide that we don't want. So yeah, my duplicant should come in here and get access to this. The other thing, too, I'm going to mention is don't aggressively mine this out. This is really valuable to just sit as it is. The thing that you will want to aggressively mine out from here is the wolframite, but I would not use it yet. Save that for later. That's going to be important later when we start dealing with really hot things. Refining that into tungsten is one of the best metals in the game for that. Let's keep up on our research. Again, if I don't have a specific goal I'm going for, just research whatever. Like, I don't need these, but I may at some point. I might as well just get the research. Let's check our skill assignments really quickly. Meep is cooking. Ari is going to be on ranching. We will talk about that in a little bit once we get all of our supply lines set up. Yeah, I do have 2 of them. I thought that that was not a common thing. I mean, if you have like 100 duplicants, of course you're going to have duplicates. But usually when you're that low, I don't really see that often. Again, I'm going to put him in exosuit training for the supplier so he can move around faster. I want to specialize as many people and stuff like this because being able to move around the base faster is a really big benefit. I obviously want to have them not moving as much as possible if I can, but ultimately it's going to be kind of inevitable, so I might as well make them good at it. Okay, gonna hook up the rest of this. We will disconnect, or rather deconstruct the rest of these. There, now we have all of our oxygen going. We have our food solution for quite a long time. I'm going to pare this down. You'll want to kind of balance it out to make sure you're not producing too many berries compared to how much sleet wheat you have. So I will probably dig up a bunch of this stuff. I'm going to first dig up the mealwood until I'm sure that I can stabilize on this, but the kind of downside about this map, and actually one of the reasons that I chose it, is because these ice biomes are a little small. So I don't want to go too wild with just being like, oh, I have the solution for my food now. I'm probably going to need to find another ice biome with sleet wheat in it before I'm comfortable saying that we have enough sleet wheat to maintain just on its own for a while. So yeah, that's going to be the plan. I'll dig into this ice biome as well. Let me check my notes here. Oh, one other thing is eventually when you're hooking up your power to these transformers can only handle 1 kilojoule of power at a time. So if you have more than that that's being drawn from it, one of 2 things is going to happen. Either your wire is going to start breaking because there's too much electricity on the wire that's being asked for, or you're going to get a situation where these power transformers can't possibly power everything that's connected to them. So I had to split it into 2 halves. So this line is basically full. It's about all it can handle if everything is operating at the same time. So just create a new line and hook it up to something else. So that'll eventually happen. I'm going to stay on these 8 duplicants for right now. I'm not going to take any more for a little bit. I need to add some more beds here, by the way, for my extra duplicant. Eventually, we're going to get up to about 16, but we want to take it a little bit slow. The first concern that we have for every single duplicate we bring in here is our food and oxygen situation. My food situation is not fully stabilized yet, so I don't feel comfortable going up that high until I have everything to back that. I don't want to build myself in a corner by taking too many duplicants, and that's one of the most common ways you will have a hard time in this game. So yeah, that I think is pretty much all I have for my notes right now. The next thing we'll probably be focusing on is getting our ventilation set up so we can vent all of our carbon dioxide out into space and have that problem taken care of for quite a long time. Then we'll move on to a couple other we're not quite entering the mid-game yet, but we're getting pretty close. But at least having a good early game where we're not burning through our resources is going to be really helpful. So we'll get into, I guess, what people define as a mid-game here pretty quickly, but yeah, that's pretty much it for right now. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with another part here pretty soon.